Hello and welcome to my training Zoom room. Today we're going to play with Microsoft Excel basic shortcuts. So I'm going to talk about some basic keyboard and mouse shortcuts and some navigating and formatting tricks to try to get you a little bit faster in Microsoft Excel and a little more comfortable on your feet with it. There are no files today. I'm going to jump right into Microsoft Excel. So if you want to play along, just open up Microsoft Excel. And I'm going to put you here into my Excel window. Okay, so I'm using Office 2019 today, but it should be the same in every version of Microsoft Excel. There's no new neat tools that I'm going to play with. What we're playing with is fundamental across every version that I have played with. Okay, starting off at the very top of the window, we are on book 1, right? This is a workbook. Microsoft Excel files are called workbooks. Microsoft Word is documents, just the way they are, okay? Up here at the very top is my quick access toolbar. And my quick access toolbar has the most common buttons that we want to use, our save and our undo. And those are the two that Microsoft Office is offering us. But there are other buttons that we might want up here as well. And I'm going to show you how to add buttons to it today. Below that, the whole big section up here is my ribbon, right? So my home, insert, page layout, formulas, those are tabs within the ribbon. Tabs are broken into groups. So I have a clipboard group, a font group, and an alignment group. So ribbon, tabs, groups, and groups are broken into buttons. So as we hover over these little buttons, it should give us a tool tip or a screen tip telling us the name of the button, and if it's there, a keyboard shortcut. So these are pretty common throughout computing. Control B to bold, Control I to italicize, Control U to underline, okay? While my mouse is hovering over here, so I see the screen tips popping up, if I spin the wheel on my mouse, it will spin through the ribbon, okay? So I can be able to move to other tabs using the scroll wheel on my mouse. More often than not, I do that accidentally, not on purpose, right? Normally, I think I'm down in the worksheet and I'm scrolling and I'm not moving, but all of a sudden all my buttons have disappeared. Right? And this is universal throughout Microsoft Office. Just something to be aware of, right? As you spin the wheel, if you're in the ribbon, it moves to the ribbon. If you're over the worksheet, it moves over the worksheet, okay? Those of you who are just coming in, I'm in a blank Microsoft Excel file. I'm just poking around in here for right now. Okay, I'm going to come back to my home tab. All right, there are some buttons that are in more than one place. For example, my sort and filter has a menu on the home tab, but on the data tab, it has its own group, my sort and filter group, okay? Now, as I said, some of my favorite buttons are up here, save and undo, but there are other buttons that I use all the time. So for example, in the review tab, the very first button is one of my favorites. Now, in every other program, when I type something, if I spell it wrong, it's very likely I'm going to get that little red underline telling me it's wrong, right? Doesn't happen in Excel. Excel doesn't care about your words. It cares about the numbers. So if you misspell something, it doesn't care. But we do, right? So it's a good idea before you share a file, if you're not sure, to run the spell check. Now, if I hover over it, I can see on the review tab, first button, this is my spell check, and I can push F7 if I want to. If you're not good with the keyboard shortcuts, though, you might decide to add it up here, if nothing else, to remind you that you should run it. So I'm going to right click on this spell check, and I'm going to add to the quick access toolbar. And that's going to put a little copy of this button up here next to the save and undo. And I can do this with any of my buttons up here in the ribbon. For example, on the data tab, I do a lot of sorting. So I might add my little AZ and ZA, my ascending and descending buttons up here. Right? If you do a lot of filters or a lot of pivot tables or a lot of auto sums, it might be helpful to have the buttons up here. It's kind of cool. All right, I'm going to come back to my home tab. One last thing about the ribbon. If I double click on the word home, all the tools disappear, okay? Now in 365, sometimes it gives you a short toolbar, but really all of those tools have gone away. So I'm going to come back up here and click on home. It opens it, but it's not really open. Do you see how the first couple of rows have disappeared? If I click back out of it, it shrinks back down. To bring it back, when you click on it, there's a push pin in the far right corner, or you can just double click on the tab name again and it will pop into place. Okay, you want to make sure you can see row 1 and you can see all of the buttons. Now I showed you how to add buttons up here, but I didn't show you how to remove them. Okay, so let's come up. I'm going to right click on the itty bitty button I put in that quick access toolbar, and I'm going to tell it to remove, and it will bloop, disappear. So just as easy, right? We right click on a tool and we can add it. And then when it's up here, we can right click and remove it. Okay, good. Now, I am a big keyboard shortcutter. So a lot of times in my classes, if you come through the different Zoom sessions I offer, I will point out keyboard shortcuts as we go through. Okay, so for example, this save, right, is Control S. All right, and if I pressed Control S, it would save. But save as is F12 on the keyboard. And these are Windows shortcuts. So I am using Microsoft Windows. I'm not absolutely positive. I know I said every version. I'm sorry. I meant every Windows version. So Macs are probably a little different because it does have a different layout. There's no delete button. There's a, the backspace instead. I do have a list of Mac shortcuts. If you email me, I can send you that list and I will make a note to put it on the web page with these. So Mac shortcuts. I just didn't put them up, sorry. When we get to moving around, it should be similar, but I know on Windows we do have a few more buttons. All right, so adding the quick access toolbar. One last thing about the quick access toolbar. Actually, about shortcuts in general in the ribbon, okay? So if I push the Alt key on the keyboard, it opens up the ribbon. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing these little tiny characters up here now, okay? So I said, save was Control S, right? But I can also press Control 1. Do you see the little 1 that popped up? I'll escape so I can do that again. I'm not just hanging out here. If I push the Alt key, right, I can see the H for home, the N for insert, right, and the 1, 2, 3, 4 up here. So Alt 1 would also be my save. It's kind of cool. To get out of this, I can hit escape, okay? To bold, we could press Control B, or let's try this, Alt. H will take me into the Home tab. So I'm going to push the H, and look at the beautiful thing that's here, okay? And I see the number 1 again is now my bold, right? So as I come through here, Alt H1 or Alt HB will open my borders. Alt HH will open my, if you go too far, we hit escape, right? And it takes us back up to the next level. We hit escape again, it will go away, okay? So Alt jumps you into that little toolbar up there. Questions? All right. Let's get under the ribbon then. Let's get into all that stuff I did up there with the Alt and the shortcuts and the, that's throughout Microsoft Office. You open up any of the programs with the ribbon, you can do all of those things that I just did. All right, a little vocabulary. This little box that's showing me where I am. This is my name box, right? When I hover over it, it tells me. I've got my reject or cancel, my accept or enter, and my formula buttons. I've got this big empty space. This is my formula bar, right? The true contents of the cell. Cells, each a little rectangle here that has its address showing in the name box, broken into columns of a building, right? Rows of chairs. So our rows are numbered, columns are lettered, okay? You want to get your ducks in a row, we don't stack them on top of each other, right? So rows are going to go across. All right. I am currently in ready mode. So Microsoft Excel is ready. Are you? We're going to move around a little bit with the keyboard. Okay. I have arrow keys on the keyboard that go up, down, left, and right. And when I push them, up, down, left, and right. And if it's not working, you can hit the escape key a couple of times and then it should start to work. Up, down, left, and right. It's very exciting. Okay. I'm going to jump to the top. I'm going to press Control up to jump all the way to the top. And then Control left to go all the way to the side. Control right takes me all the way to the other side. This is column XFD, and you're going to have to take my word for it. This is the 16,384th column. Whew. Control down, because there's 1,048,576 rows. Microsoft Excel is huge, and this is just one worksheet, because I can have over 250 worksheets. So it could be this big. I'm going to tell you, it doesn't like to be this big. If you end up putting something down here, it's going to get kind of cranky with you, and the whole file size is going to boom, right? But know that there is an ending point, and that's what the control arrows are trying to do. So jumping to the next data set, or the next time that data set changes. I'm going to control over and up and back, right? What it's doing though is it's looking for data. So right now, since there's no data in here, it's just taking the whole thing. But if you're playing with a large data set and you press control down, it's going to jump to the next blank. And if you hit control down again, to the next time there's data. Control down again to the next blank. If you hit control down again and it goes all the way to the bottom, you know that you've reached the bottom, and you can control up to get back to the bottom of the set. It's pretty cool. Now, if there was a lot of data in here though, these control arrows, right, it might take a little while, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. You might pick another column to go up and down through. So I want to show you how to get back to the very top no matter what we're playing with in any program. We're going to use control home. If I press control and then the home key, usually it's located above your arrow keys. Depending on your keyboard, you might need an FN for it, but control home should always return you to the very top, right? And that should take us back to the beginning, okay? Because in home, that's what it means in computing. We have a home page on the internet. We have a home tab in our ribbon. We have a home button on our keyboard. And typically it means the beginning of the line or the beginning of the row, but the control takes me all the way to the very beginning, all the way back up to the top. Now, if you can't find your home key or it's not working well for you, you can always scroll through. I'm going to show you another neat thing about this name box up here. And no matter what address you're in, whether you're in A1 or somewhere else, click inside the name box here and type in JK88. JK88. Nothing else. Capitalization doesn't matter. And when I press enter, poof. Okay, so I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Not nowhere. I'm in JK88. Let me come back in here. ABC123. No spaces. Just typing, not in the cell that I was in, but in the numpad up in the formula bar up here. ABC123. And as soon as you press enter, bloop, it should take us all the way to column ABC, all the way down to row 1, 2, 3. Just like that. So if the control home doesn't work for you, or if you prefer the mouse, one solution is to come into this little box and type in A1 and press enter. That should take us all the way back to A1. Good. Now, just in case you typed something in, I want you to check out your undo, right? Because if I did accidentally leave my ABC in here, my undo button will be lit up. If it's not, that's great. That's what I want. But if it is lit up, I want you to click on the arrow and undo everything that's in there, all the actions, until that grays back out. And I'm going to come back up to the top. I'm using the keyboard control home. Okay. So while this is 16,000 by 1,048,000, that's not what Microsoft Excel is using. Microsoft Excel understands you're only using part of this. Like I said, if I did control down and I typed something down at the bottom, all of a sudden it's going to think I'm using all 1,048,000 cells. And I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to prove it to you. Put me in cell G12, golly G12. And I'm going to type the letter A as an apple. And when I press enter, ta-da! All right, it's very unimpressive, Pandora. I know, okay. What happened though for us is it just went to the next cell. But to Microsoft Excel, you just defined a working area of here A1 through F12. And I'm going to show you how I can tell. We're going to go to the View tab, the View tab. And currently we are in normal view. That's why the normal button's selected. We're in normal view. I'm going to go to the one called Page Break Preview. Now, depending on your version, it might be the second or third button, but we're looking for Page Break Preview. If it pops open a message, just say OK to it. This is my working area. This is what Microsoft Excel thinks that I'm using because it went from A1 to the last cell that I typed in. So I'm going to pick another spot out here in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to type A again, and press enter again. Whoosh. Just depending on the size of your screen, right, you'll see it zoom to a different amount, right? I just picked a random spot. I ended up on 8 pages. You might have 3, you might have 22. If you stayed too close, you might still have 1. You could pick another spot out further and type A and press enter and see it jump all the way, right? So it follows you to however big we need. Now, I only typed in 3 pages here, but Microsoft Excel is going to print all 10 of the pages I ended up on, okay? Now, if I go back and I delete those, it should snap back. If I click on the A, or if I use my arrow key to move to it, and I press the delete, it should snap back. Now, if you accidentally move one of these blue lines, it's going to think that, oh, that's what you wanted. So you might need to undo instead, but it should automatically, once we start typing in, if it grows itself, when you delete it, it should shrink itself back, okay? If you're not sure, you can always undo. Groovy. So again, this is all Microsoft Excel is thinking about. If you go to your page break preview, right, if I went down to the very bottom and typed something, again, it would take up that whole thing. If I merge and center an entire row, it's going to take up that whole thing. All 16,000 columns are suddenly part of your printout and part of your file, and your file size is going to, so it's something to be careful of, something to watch for. All right, and this is one way to be able to see, well, what is it that it actually thinks that it's using? And we'll play with this view more in the printing class. I think that's next week. And we'll talk about how to get their page breaks to fall where we want them to fall. But for now, let's go back to the normal view. And if you have any A's left, go ahead and delete them. If you want to, you've always got your undo. We could go all the way back to where we first started if you wanted to. All right, so while I'm here in this view, let's go ahead and play with the zoom just a little bit, okay? I can click on this zoom button and change myself to 200% and okay. Cool, it's a little big. We'll go back to 100% with a little 100 button, okay? How about zoom to selection? I don't have anything selected, so what's going to happen is it's going to go as big as it possibly can, which is 400%. How can I tell what the percentage is that I'm currently looking at? Well, our percentage shows up down here in the corner above our clock, right? So even if you can't see it on my screen because your Zoom windows, you can move those Zoom windows out of the way, but down here in the bottom corner of your window is your percentage. And if you click on that percentage number that's showing, that opens up the Zoom box. So I don't have to come to the View tab to find this, right? I'm going to put this down to 50%. Okay. Well, that's too small, but I can see where the page breaks are. That's kind of neat. Now, next to that 50% is a little plus sign. And every time I click on it, it zooms in. If I come to the other side and click on it, it zooms out. If you grab that little zoom slider in the middle and pull it back and forth, right, you'll see it zoom in and zoom out. If you do it really fast, you can make yourself dizzy. Whee! Sorry. Okay. I want to be at 150% today. So you can use these little plus signs to get to it. You can click on the percentage and type it in. However you want. I want to be at 150% today. Make sure my numlock's on. Okay. Good. So I don't have to come to the View tab to play with the zoom, right? I can play with it down in the corner. Let's go back to the Home tab. I'm out in the middle of nowhere, so scroll up to it or Control Home to get back to the top, okay? And I think I'm going to scroll in just a little bit more since I want to be big enough on your screen even if you shrink me down. So instead of using the slider, I'm going to use the keyboard and mouse shortcuts. If I hold down the Control key, and if you've got a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can zoom in and zoom out with the slider. I'm not sure how that works on the touchpad. You have to fiddle with that yourself, however you would normally scroll with your mouse, right? Using the Control key with it. And most programs will zoom in and out for you. Okay, that's a little too big. All right, feeling all right with moving around here? All right, let's play with some enters and tabs, all right? Enter, enter, enter moves down, down, down. Shift, enter pulls you up. Tab, tab, tab goes across. Shift tab will pull you back. All right, well, why would we use that instead of just the arrow keys? Because the arrow keys are like the mouse, they point to something. And the enters and tabs accept and move on. So right now we're still in ready mode, right down in the bottom left corner of our window. So we're still in ready mode. So the arrow keys and the enters are doing the same thing. But when we start doing other things, if you've taken the math class with me, you'll know about point mode, where my arrows point to the cell that I want to go to. And when we edit, right, the arrow keys move between the letters to let us edit. So the arrow keys behave differently depending on what mode we're in, right? Whether they're pointing to an address for a formula, whether they're pointing to different letters within the cell, or whether they're pointing to whole cells, depends on what version we're in. What mode we're in. So since I'm in ready mode, the enters do the same thing as the arrows. But enters and tabs, what their purpose is to accept and move on, So whatever's in that, whether it's an equation, whether you're editing, whether you're entering, it accepts and moves on for us. It's subtle, but I'll point out the differences as we go. Grab for me B2 through D4. All right, so to make a selection, we aim for the center middle, B2, and just drag across to D4. Okay. I'm holding on to all 9 of these cells, right? I can tell I'm holding on to all 9 of them because the little borders around here, right? I can see the B, C, D, the 2, 3, 4. I'm holding on to all 9 of these except, well, that first cell is different than the rest, right? See how they're all shaded when we select text in Word or Outlook, when we select over, the whole thing's gray. But here in Excel, the first cell is white. Why? Well, because my keyboard can only be in one cell at a time. So I'm up here in B2, and even though I'm holding on to all 9, and if I format, it'll format all 9, I'm only in B2. I'm going to press the Enter key on the keyboard. And now I'm in B3. Enter, enter. Ha. So this is a great way to do data entry, right? And so my tab keys, I'll move across. Think about doing a calendar here. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. All right, when I'm holding on to these, my enter keys and my tab keys, shift enter and shift tab while it's selected. What happens when I press an arrow key? If I go up, down, left, or right, I'm going to try to go up. Okay, because just like with the mouse, if I have a selection and I click on this cell, it moves to it. That's what the arrow keys do. They move to that place. Okay. I'm going to come back up here to B2. I'm going to show you some other ways to make selections. All right, because dragging works great as long as your mouse is working, as long as everything's behaving, clicking and dragging, right? As long as you get it from the middle, not the edges. But I'm going to show you another way. All right, keyboard and mouse together again. Okay, I'm in cell B2 only. I'm going to hold down the shift key that anchors me. And now wherever I click, if I keep the shift key down, I can keep clicking. So if I didn't go far enough, I can just click again. Okay. So instead of, when I let go of my mouse, I'm like, uh-oh, I got to do it again. I can click shift click and grab all the way to here. Let's come back to B2. Okay. Mouse and keyboard arrows are pointers. So if shift mouse selects, so will shift arrows. So I'm back in B2. I'm going to hold down the shift key, use the arrow keys on the keyboard to grow or shrink your selection. Ooh. All right. I'm going to come back to B2. Just clicking on it to drop the whole thing. So I'm going to make a big selection with my mouse. Just click and drag across. Whoosh. Okay. And I've let go. I said, uh-oh, I didn't go far enough. So I could do the whole thing again. But as long as I've let go, I can now hold down the shift key to anchor myself and use the arrow keys again to grow or shrink. Now it's growing and shrinking from the current cell. My current cell is B2. So if I want to grab column A, I can't do that with this selection. I'd have to reselect it. Or I can tab, so that now my anchor cell is in D2. And when I shift arrow, I can grab column A. Ha. Groovy. All right, let me do that again. This time I'll do B2. 2 through D4, just holding on to these 9. All right, if I want to grow to column E, I can shift arrow over and shift arrow back, okay, down and up. But if I want to grow from the letter D instead, I can tab, tab. So that's my current cell. And then I can shift arrow to pull away from that corner instead. Groovy. Okay. I'm going to control home, coming back up to cell A1. I'm going to move down and over into cell B2. And in all lowercase letters, we're going to type Big City Store. Big City Store. Okay, all little letters. When I start typing, I'm moving to an enter mode. Right down in the corner, it tells me I'm in enter mode. I'm doing data entry. So if I try to use an arrow key, it pops me out of it. All right, if I come back over to B2 and I try to type capital letter B, well, I lose my Big City Store, and I don't want that. So if you're a keyboarder like I am, we're going to hit escape, and it'll come back. Let me type the capital letter B again. If you prefer the mouse, up here is your cancel and your enter, right? So I'm going to click the cancel button to cancel it. So it comes back to here. Okay, same thing as the escape key. I'm going to double click inside this cell, right? We knock to get in. Boom, boom. Right? That puts me into my edit mode. That's the most common way that I'll do it, is I'll double click. I'm going to hit escape and show you 2 more. I could come into the formula bar here, and when I click, that also puts me into edit mode. And now I'm working in this long empty formula bar instead. I'm going to hit escape or cancel button. The last way, again, if you're a keyboard shortcutter like me, you might like the F2 button. F2 puts you into edit mode, and it will actually toggle between enter and edit mode. Okay. In the edit mode, I'm going to click in the middle of the word city. Arrow keys left and right, go forward and backward. Home used to take us to the beginning of the row. Now it will take us to the beginning of the words that are here. And now I have a defined end as well, whereas the whole worksheet, the end is hard to get to. Here I've got a defined beginning and end of this line. If I hold down my shift key and select, right, using my arrow keys and the shift. So hold down the shift key and use your arrows. It selects cells or it selects letters. The letter thing is true throughout your computing. All right, let me come back to the beginning. I want to replace the first letter of each word with a capital letter. So you can select it and type over it. You could backspace and type. You can delete and type, whatever makes you comfortable. I'm just going to type out Big City Store, capital letters is the first one. Again, I can use my shift arrow to select it and type over it, or remove it by deleting or backspacing and then typing it in. Okay. So on the keyboard, enter moves down, shift enter moves up, tab moves over, shift tab pulls back, right? But this little checkbox up here, it accepts and it keeps us in the same place. So the keyboard equivalent for that is control enter. If I press control enter, it keeps me in this cell. It does some other neat things, and I'll show you how to play with that here in a little bit. For right now, awesome. All right, so in cell B2, Big City Store, coming over to C2, I'm going to put in the word sale, like today's President's Day sale. Okay. I'm going to accept it, either press Control Enter, click on the little checkbox, or press Enter and come up. So we're back in ready mode on the sale. Now, to be able to see all of this, I can come between B and C and drag. Okay. I could drag it back. And you got to get your mouse in just the right spot between the column headings. I could try to guess at how big is this supposed to be. I'm going to put it here between big and city, so I just get that beautiful phrase, big sale. Okay. Putting myself here on the line between B and C, holding the mouse steady, I'm going to double click and it's going to stretch out. Coming between C and D, I'm going to double click and let it shrink down. So I'm going to let Microsoft Excel decide for me how wide these should be, or how skinny. Just coming on the line in between and double clicking. If you're having a hard time, make sure you're sort of centered between the letters. All right, we don't need to be all the way down here. We're in between the letters. Okay, let's play a little bit with the clipboard. I'm sure that you have all copied and pasted before. I want to show you some things about Microsoft Excel that are different. All right, so in most programs, when I copy, I just sort of have to have faith that I copied something, right? I'm not really sure until I go back to paste if I actually got it or not. But here in Excel, there's going to be no doubt. I'm in ready mode. I'm on cell B2 with my big city store, and I'm going to copy. So in my home tab, I'm clicking on the little copy button. I'm not opening the menu for choices. I'm just clicking on copy. And I get this marquee. Depending on how your computer's set up, yours might even be marching, okay? Basically, this is what we're copying. So we can tell right away if we got the wrong cell. I'm gonna click on an empty cell and click on the copy button again. I see now I've got the wrong one. I can see based on where that dashed line is. So this time for my big city store, instead of the ribbon, I'm gonna use my right click and choose copy from here. Keyboard shortcutters, right? The keyboard shortcut for this is Control-C to copy. All right, so it's in my memory. I've got it. I'm going to come somewhere else, and I can right-click paste, or I can choose the big paste button up here. I can use the keyboard shortcut, or even try to come into this little menu to see all these different options. So these are my paste special options, and as you hover over them, they tell you what it is that they're going to do. But all I'm interested in is the very first one, just a simple paste. I'm going to make a couple of these. Paste and paste and paste. Okay. Now, I'm going to click one more time. I still have my marquee around Big City Store. I'm in an empty cell. And I want to bring your attention again back down to the status bar at the bottom of the window. This says select a destination and press enter or choose paste. Well, I've been choosing paste, right? From the right click, from the ribbon, from the keyboard shortcuts, I've been choosing paste. I'm going to press enter now in this empty cell. And two things happen. My big city store pastes and my clipboard's been cleared. Notice that the marquee, the dashed line is gone. Notice that my whole paste button up there in the ribbon completely grayed out. Okay, so sort of a final paste. Cool. I actually get so used to working in Excel with it, I start to miss it when I'm in other programs. Let's go up here to cell C2. Now, I'm going to play with cut. And other programs, when I cut something, it disappears, right? But cut's just actually a two-part tool. It copies it to the clipboard and it deletes it from the screen. Here in Microsoft Excel, I'm here on cell C2. I'm in ready mode, and I'm going to tell it to cut. I'm using the little scissors, Control X, and it doesn't disappear like it would in another program. But I do get the marquee. The marquee shows me what's in the clipboard. I'm going to come to another cell, and either your paste, your right click, your enter, however we tell it to paste, there's only one paste special option, then the original goes away. So in some programs, I can cut and then paste, 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 paste. We do that in my Word classes sometimes. But when I'm in Excel, once I cut, as soon as you paste, it's done. So I'm going to cut and paste it back. Cut, paste. Okay. Now, I'm still in my sale. Okay. I'm going to come to the bottom right-hand corner of it here in cell C2. When I get to just the right spot on the fill handle, I'm going to see that little plus sign, that thin crosshair cursor. And if I click and drag it down, down, it starts to stretch out. And when I let go, it repeats itself, sale, sale, sale. Sometimes that's easier than copy and paste, right? Just grab the corner, drag it down, and it fills itself in. I'm going to come back up to that very first sale. I've got 3 of them now. And you can copy and paste them if you need to, but I grabbed the corner and dragged it down. On my first sale, I have a border that goes all the way around. So I'm ignoring the fill handle and just putting my mouse along the edge. top, bottom, left, right, doesn't matter. When I see that four-way arrow, I'm going to click and drag away. And when I get to an empty space, I'm going to drop it. And do you see what happened? It moved it. I think that's faster than cut and paste. I'm going to try to move that second sail, and I can't grab it. And that's because it's not selected, right? I got to click on it. Then I can grab the border and drag it somewhere else. Bloop. Gorgeous. All right. One more. Take me to your explosive sail, your C4 sail. Ha ha ha. Explosive C4. I think I'm funny. Okay, so here in cell C4, I'm coming to the edge. I'm going to drag it to an empty cell, but I'm not going to let go, right? So holding it down. So I see the edge of the cell it's going into. I'm holding it down, and I'm going to look on my keyboard for that control key. And when I push the control, the mouse changes to have a little plus sign. Do you see that? I'm going to let go of the control. The plus sign goes away. Push the control, plus sign comes back. All right, so normally when I pick it up from the edge and I drag it somewhere, when I let go, it just moves it. But if I do it with the control key, I let go of the mouse before the keyboard, it duplicates it. Did you see that? Let me try again. I'm going to come here to the sail, doesn't matter which one, drag it from the edge, hold down the control key, let go of the mouse before the keyboard. Oof. All right, so I'm going to spend about a minute here just pulling all of these back together, right? If you want to delete everything and just start from scratch, you're welcome to, but I'd love if you practiced coming to the edge and dragging it over, no keyboard, right? So just one hand here, my mouse, moving them over. If you prefer cut and paste, that works just as well. Oopsie. As long as you get yourself in the right spot. So along the edge, big city store, big city store, big city store. Sail, sail, sail. So I'm looking for 7 of each of them, right? So going from row 2 to row 8, going from row 2 to row 8. I could copy and paste these, or I could take the little handle and drag it down. Okay. So let's get rid of all but the first 2. I'm going to click on row 3. I'm going to drag my mouse down. So I'm leaving row 2, and I'm either going to right click and choose clear contents, or on the keyboard, I can push delete to clear the contents. All right. If you actually chose delete, that's fine as well, right? I'm just selected all of the ones we were playing with, except for the first 2. So again, I'm going to take this corner and I'm going to drag it down to row 8, and that fills them all in for me. Awesome. Undo. I'm going to select B2 down to B8, and I let go of everything. So just have a selection here as if I was going to bold them all. And I'm going to press Control D as in down, and it will fill it in all the way. Let me do that again. I made a selection, right? And I'm going to press Control D, and whatever was in the first cell will fill down, all right? For those of you who may want to know, Control R will fill right, okay? But Control D will fill down. Awesome. Coming to my sail next door here in cell C2, putting my mouse in the bottom right-hand corner so I see that thin plus sign. When I hold the mouse steady, I'm not going to drag it. I'm going to double click, whoosh, and it also fills down. And it fills down as far as column B went. If I had had more stuff down here, it would have followed all the way down. That double click goes as far as the previous. Cool. All right, I actually wanted to move these over. I'm currently in B and C. I want them to be in E and F. So I'm going to grab this whole big city store sail, selecting them all. No corners, no edges, right? Putting my mouse on the word city, dragging to sail, and letting go. I'm going to come to the edge and drag it over to E and F. No, F and G. So what happens when we pick stuff up and move it? It moves this data, right? But not the column width, right? It moves the cells, but not the columns. So I have a really skinny column and a really big column here. I'm going to move those back, or you can click undo. Okay, so I want to keep the column width as they are and just move them over. And we do that by inserting. So I can right click on a column and tell it to insert. Poof. I'm going to undo. When you click on a column letter, you could also use the insert button in the ribbon. So if you look all the way across, not the insert tab, that's something different. On the home tab, all the way across, you should see an insert button. That's the same thing as the right click insert. Let me undo. I need to move these over to F and G. So I need 3 of these, 1, 2, 3. And either from the right click or the ribbon, tell it to insert. Oh, I need 1 more. Okay. So right click insert, or select however many columns you may need. Let me put them back. So I need all of these, right click, insert. And I want 1 too many, so I can right click delete. Okay. Or use the delete button here. We select the whole column and we're able to do that. Control minus and Shift Control plus will open the insert and delete windows if you're curious. Okay, Control minus and Control plus to subtract and to add cells. It's in your handout if you're interested. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of formatting here, just kind of moving quickly through it because I'm sure you formatted before. But here in cell F2, I'm going to pick a different format. If you're patient, you'll see it change. All right, moving to the next one. I'm going to change the size, and we are not locked into these numbers. If 12 is too small, 14 is too big, I can make it size 13. I just erase the number that's in here, type in 13, lucky number, and press enter. I can go a little bigger, 13.5. Okay, these numbers go between 1 and 409. That's 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Anything smaller than 8, you're going to have a hard time reading when you print it out. Here we can zoom in. On the paper, the zoom only works so well. So I can come through and make these any size I want up to the half sizes, right? So if I wanted to be at 100, I could type in 100 and it would make it that big for me. I think size 8 is fine. I also have these grow and shrink font buttons next door where I can make it bigger or smaller. And notice that the row height is changing, but the column width is not, okay? These numbers are locked to the numbers that are on the list. So the smallest they'll go is 8, the biggest they'll go is 72. If you want anything else, you have to change it from the drop-down list yourself. I'm gonna go down to 8. I can read 8.5, 5-point font is when it gets really difficult. Okay, coming down to the next 3, we're gonna bold, italicize, underline. So keyboard shortcuts or using the ribbon, bold, italicize, underline, okay? Control B to bold, Control I to italicize, and Control U for underline, okay? Next to the underline button, there's a little drop-down list. No nice keyboard shortcut for this. If I want to underline, I can use Control U. If I want to double underline, bloop, bloop. All right, so we underline when we're serious, we double underline when we're middle name serious, right? So we're really pulling this out. All right, coming to the next one. I'm going to change the font color, right? The letters, that's what I've been playing with is the letters. I'm going to change the letter color. And I'm going to bold it. Okay. I think I got into next week's class here, but almost. Oh, we're good. Okay. Coming down to the last one, we're going to modify each word individually. So I'm going to double click to get inside. Double click on just big. And I can go to the ribbon or use this little toolbar to bold it and change the color. Grab the next word, Italicize, change the color. The next word. Underline, you're gonna have to use the ribbon or your keyboard shortcut and change the color. Okay, I know I'm going a little quickly. All right, let's come up to the first sale. So these toolbars are awesome once you get the feel for them, right? But having to come through and look at this change every single time I want to fiddle with it, it gets kind of old, kind of fast, okay? So I'm going to show you how to change them all at the same time. Throughout Microsoft Office, when we're playing with our ribbon up here at the top, we have these little tiny more buttons in the corner. Do you see them? All right, so more about the font, more about the alignment, more about the numbers. The actual name is called Launch Dialog Box Button. I'm in cell G2, and I'm going to click on the More button for fonts, and it's going to take me here into my Format cells, specifically to the font window. I'm going to hit Escape or Cancel. Keyboard shortcutters, Control and the number 1 will open up this format window. Cancel. Mousers, you can click on the More button or you can right click and look for the Format Cells option. Okay, however we get here, I'm going to use Comic Sans, ABCD, bold, size 14, a double underline, do you see it there? I'm going to make it green. Okay, Comic Sans, bold, 14, double underline green. And again, I got to this either by clicking on the More button in the corner of my font group, right, pressing Control 1 on the keyboard, that's the one above the letter Q, or right clicking and choosing Format Cells. Comic Sans, bold, 14, double underline green. Got some other options here that we're not playing with, but they're pretty neat. I'm going to click OK. Cool. I'm going to make believe that I love the way this looks. Love the way this looks. And I want the big city store in front of it to look exactly the same way. So I could go back through and change all the options again for this cell, but there's a faster way. I'm going to stay here in G2, Golly G2, and I'm going to look back in that clipboard with that cut, copy, and paste, because there's a fourth button called the Format Painter. And if you click on the Format Painter, you'll get the marquee showing us we are copying our sale. But when I move my mouse down, it's got a paintbrush following it. Do you see it? And if I click on the big city store, it becomes Comic Sans, bold, 14, double underline green. So copy copies the whole cell. Format Painter copies just the formatting. If it didn't work for you, try hitting Escape. Make sure you're on a green cell. Click on the Format Painter. Click on another sale. Beautiful. If you hover over this tool, the little screen tooltip that pops up is really detailed. And it tells us at the very bottom of it, FYI, to do this a whole bunch of times instead of just a one-time fix. Come up and double click on this paintbrush. And now you got the Midas touch. Boom, boom, boom. And if you want to drag through the whole selection, right, we could be able to do that. Everything will change except for the one we broke. We got real fussy with it. We said, I want you this way and this way and this way. Right. Cool. So I've changed all of mine, and I'm done, but that paintbrush is still following me. Do you see it? So I'm going to hit Escape, or you can click on the paintbrush again to turn it back off. Okay, gorgeous. Let's clear this out. I'm going to grab the whole worksheet. Okay. When I click on that little fold in the corner right above the number 1, next to the letter A, if you're a keyboarder, Control A picks up your data set, and again, picks up the whole thing. Or if you're in an empty cell, Control A picks up all. Okay. With everything selected, we're going to go back into the More fonts. More fonts. Now I want to go back to the nice, normal, boring text we had when we first started. And that was, well, there's a whole bunch of calibres in here. Were we size 11 or 12? You know what? I don't have to know this because Microsoft Excel knows what's normal for itself. Do you see it? Microsoft Excel knows what's normal. So I just need to click in this box until it puts a check in, and it lights up that whole data set for me. So if I click on this checkbox, Calibre regular 11, no underline, automatic color, and when I click OK, how pretty is that? I'm going to undo. I could go in and choose normal font, or with everything selected, I want you to look way over on the right. We have the insert button. Keep going over for the clear button. I don't want to clear all of it. I just want to clear the formats. And again, everything but the one we were fussy with will change. Now, sometimes this one does, and I can't tell you why. Solar flares, sometimes it changes and sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time, it doesn't. Okay? I love it. Good. Let's go to a new worksheet so I can leave this one alone. I'm going to come to the new worksheet by clicking on the plus sign at the bottom. I think I've changed my mind. Haha. I want to go back to sheet 1. I can click on sheet 1, or keyboarders, you should have above the arrows a page up and page down button. Control page up goes up, control page down goes down, between the sheets, right? So if you hit that little plus sign between the sheets, so we can move with our page up and our page down. Instead of just clearing the formats, I've decided I do want to clear the whole thing. So again, I could come and delete these, or we could grab that whole worksheet. Since I'm going to clear the whole thing out, I'm going to use that little clear button. And this time I am going to clear all, and that erases the data too. But notice it did not take the column width, right? So if I've pasted something in here and I can erase it all and then just paste it back in. But I'm coming back here to B2, and we're going to type in 1, 2, 3, enter, 4, 5, 6, enter, 7, 8, 9, enter. I know. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in column B, in column B. All right. We are going to bold the first one, italicize the second one, underline the third one. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Changing my formats here. Because the last thing that I want to show you today is playing with those fill handle options. Okay, the fill handle options. So let's come here to B3. I'm going to fill in the background color. And in B4, I'm going to fill in the font color. Okay, so I'm changing the fill color with the little bucket, and I'm changing the font color with the little A. Okay, so I've bolded the first one, italicized and changed the fill color of the second, underlined and changed the color of the letters on the third. Coming back to B2. Last thing for the day, these little fill handle options. Now, you know this fill handle, when I dragged it down, right, what did it do? It repeated itself, big city store, big city store, big city store. So if I do it here, same thing, it repeats itself, even bringing the bold with it, right? So I've lost all the formatting. But I've got this little fill handle option. So we play with this a lot in a math class. So I taught math 1 last week, and it's online if you want to go through the session, or you can email me and we could do it privately. And it's coming up again in March. I'm going to come to this little fill handle options and see the other things that I have. Right now, it copied the cells. Because this is a number, I can actually fill the series, and it will count forward 1 at a time. I can also fill only the formatting, right? Because originally I had 1, 2, 3, and now it's just bold and 7, 8, 9. So let me undo that. Right? Remember all these colorful things? If I fill down and tell it to only fill the formatting, the numbers stay the same, but they all become bold instead of colorful. I could tell it to fill without the formatting, which leaves me with that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but keeping the formats there. And I see this all the time on your worksheets, right? People share them with me and I help, right? I'm here to help. we go and we put a new value or new formula and we fill it down and we lose all of the colors that are all the way down. This is how you get around that. We fill it down and we tell it fill without formatting so that we maintain the colors of our rows, but we change the contents of the cells that are inside. Okay. I hope that you learned a lot today and that you retained most of it. Like I said, I tried to put everything in my head inside the handout that's on our website. My name again was Pandora Rose Cowart. I'm here to help if you need it. I'm here for other sessions, private or public. I'm putting the class evaluation in the chat window. If you have time to fill it out, I would appreciate it. If not, that's okay. Thank you for joining me.